The plant pictured here is a member of the genus Aeonium, commonly known as Aeonium. You may sometimes hear this plant called the tree house leek as well. Here is an Aeonium growing in the Canary Islands. The form here is pretty typical of what you'll see in cultivation: rosettes of succulent leaves clustered on the ends of slightly bending, woody stems. Some Aeoniums may be shorter, some may be taller, depending on the species, cultivar, or hybrid. Here's a popular hybrid called Aeonium Zwartkoop at Longwood Gardens. You can see that the form is pretty similar to what we saw on the previous slide, but this one has long purple leaves. Aeoniums will generally always have that tight rosette of leaves on the ends of the branches, but the leaves themselves will vary in color and shape, depending on the plant. Many of the Aeoniums that are on the market right now will be hybrids. This species, Aeonium tabuliforme, has very short stems topped with a large, flat, single rosette that can get up to 2 feet wide. Individual leaves are usually spatulate or spoon-shaped, and they may be long, like you can see on this species, Aeonium urbicum. On other species, cultivars or hybrids, they might be shorter and more squat, like you can see here on Aeonium canariense. They will frequently have a mucronate leaf apex, which means that the tip of the leaf has a very short, sharp, abrupt point. Many of the Aeoniums you will see also have a ciliate leaf margin, meaning that there is a fine fringe of hairs on the leaf margins, which you can see here. On this hybrid, you can really see those ciliate margins and the mucronate leaf apex. Some Aeoniums will have mottled leaves, and some may be variegated. If you're growing Aeoniums in bright sunlight, frequently you'll see the leaf margins and possibly a little bit on the tip of the leaf or even the underside take on a bright reddish or pinkish tinge. The typical Aeonium flower will be a pyramid-shaped panicle with bright yellow flowers that emerge from the rosettes. The vast majority of Aeoniums are monocarpic, meaning that each individual rosette will flower only once and then die. Usually enough offsets are produced that it won't be too tragic if you lose one rosette. And you can see here on this plant that the dead rosettes and flowers are there, but they're not really enough to detract from how the plant looks. Aeonium do best in full sun or very bright light with some afternoon shade. Like I mentioned before, bright light really brings out the colors, and you can see the reddish coloration on this Aeonium in the lower right of this photo. Aeoniums can also add a really nice pop of color and some bold texture to plantings or just as a specimen plant. And I had to include this photo because it contains a couple aloes and 2 different euphorbias that we'll cover later in this unit, as well as our old friend Sansevieria trifasciata. I highly encourage you to come back to this image after you finish the unit and see if you can recognize those plants. In their native environment, Aeoniums go dormant in the summer when it's hot and dry, and their growing season is in the winter. A lot of species grow in coastal areas or islands where they experience mists and fogs, and because of this, Aeoniums can tolerate a little more water and benefit from some humidity in cultivation. They're commonly grown outdoors in coastal California, where their growing season coincides with the winter rains. And this concludes our discussion of Aeonium, commonly known as Aeonium.